Good evening. MP by E002, block number 3, unit number 3, environmental ethics. Objectives. One of the main objectives of studying the environmental ethics is to know in depth that our existence is impossible if the nature does not exist. There is a flow of energy that steps out from us to the environment and vice versa. This energy from a connecting link between us and the nature, which is indispensable. A study of the environment and all its components is nothing but the relationship that we humans share with the nature. So I would say that by studying environmental ethics, we establish a link, a relationship with the nature, and our concern for the environment becomes stronger. Thus, we are urged to do something that would stop the exploitation of the environment. Environmental ethics has been described as having a conscience or moral that reflects one's commitment and responsibility towards the environment as well as present and future generations of people. In essence, it refers to human societies living in harmony with the natural world on which they depend for survival and well-being. Human beings are a part of the society and so are the other living beings. When we talk about the philosophical principle that guides our life, we often ignore the fact that even plants and animals are a part of our life. They are an integral part of the environment and hence have a right to be considered a part of the human life. Introduction. Adjusting a relationship between humans and nature is one of the most fundamental issues we face and we must deal with today. With the increasing deterioration of ecological systems on which human beings rely and the aggravation of the environmental crisis, human beings have realized that we cannot rely on economic and judicial methods alone to solve the problems of environmental pollution and ecological imbalances. We must also appeal to human beings limitless internal ethical resources. Only after we have adopted an appropriate attitude towards nature and have established a new ethical relationship between human beings and nature will be able to love and respect nature automatically as well as conscientiously, and only with the guidance of such love and respect that respect can be successfully deal with the issue of environmental pollution and ecological imbalances. Environmental ethics meaning. Environmental ethics is a new sub-discipline of philosophy that deals with the ethical problems surrounding environmental protection. It aims to provide ethical justification and moral motivation for the cause of global environmental protection. There are several distinctive features of environmental ethics that deserve our attention. First, environmental ethics is extended. Traditional ethics mainly concern infra-human duties, especially duties among contemporaries. Environmental ethics extend the scope of ethical concerns beyond one's community and nation to include not only all people everywhere but also animals and the whole of nature, the biosphere, both now and beyond the imminent future to include future generations. Second, environmental ethics is interdisciplinary. There are many overlapping concerns and areas of consensus among environmental ethics. Environmental politics, environmental economics, environmental science, and environmental literature. For example, the distinctive perspective and methodologies of these disciplines provide important aspiration for environmental ethics, and environmental ethics offers value foundation for these disciplines. They reinforce, influence, and support each other. Third, environmental ethics is plural. From the moment it was born, environmental ethics has been an area in which different ideas and perspectives compete with each other. Anthropocentrism, animal liberation rights theory, biocentrism, and ecocentrism all provide unique and, in some sense, reasonable ethical justifications for environmental protection. Their approaches are different, but their goal are by and large the same, and they have reached this consensus. It is everyone's duty to protect the environment. The basic ideas of environmental ethics also find support from and are embodied in various well established cultural traditions. The pluralism of theories and multicultural perspective is critical for environmental ethics to retain its vitality. Fourth, environmental ethics is global ecological crisis is a global issue. Environmental pollution does not respect national boundaries. No country can deal with this issue alone. No, to cope with the global environmental crisis, human beings must reach some value consensus and cooperate with each other at the personal, national, regional, multinational, and global level. Global environmental protection depends on global governance, and environmental ethics is therefore typically a global ethic with a global perspective. Fifth, ethics is revolutionary at the level of ideas. Environmental ethics challenges the dominant and deep-rooted uh, anthropocentrism of modern mainstream ethics and extends the objective of our duty to future generations and non-human beings. At the practice level, environmental ethics forcefully critique the mainstream, critique the materialism, the materialism, hedonism, and consumerism, uh, ac- accompanying modern capitalism, and calls instead of a green lifestyle that is harmonious with nature. It searches for an economic arrangement that is sensitive to Earth's limit and to concern for quality of life. In the political arena, it advocates a more equitable international economic and political order that is based on the principles of democracy, global justice, and universal human rights. It argues for pacifism and against an arms race. In short, as the theoretical representation of a newly emerging moral idea and value orientation, environmental ethics is the fullest extension of human ethics. It calls on us to think and act locally as well as globally. It calls for a new, deeper moral consciousness. The modern construction of environmental ethics. We are cutting down for forest for making our homes. We are continuing with an excessive consumption of natural resources. Their excessive use is resulting in their depletion, risking the life of our future generations. Is this ethical? This is a issue. This is the issue that environmental ethics taken up. So scientists like Rachel Carson and the environmentalists who led philosophers to consider the philosophical aspect of environmental problems pioneered in the development of environmental ethics as a branch of environmental philosophy. The Earth Day celebration of 1970 was also one of the factors which led to the development of environmental ethics as a separate field of study. Today, environmental ethics is one of the major concerns of mankind. When industrial processes lead to destruction of resources, is it not the industry's responsibility to restore the depleted resources? Moreover, can a restored environment make up for the originally natural one? Mining processes hamper the ecology of certain areas. They may result in the disruption of plant and animal life in those areas. Slash and burn technique are used for clearing the land for agriculture. Most of the human activities lead to environmental pollution. The overly increasing human population is increasing the human demand for resources like food and shelter. As the population is exceeding the carrying capacity of our planet, natural environments are being used for human inhabitation. Thus, human beings are disturbing the balance in the nature. The harm we as human beings are causing to the nature is coming back to us by resulting in a polluted environment. The depletion of natural resources is endangering our future generations. The imbalance in nature that we have caused is going to disrupt our life as well. But environmental ethics brings about the fact that all the life forms on earth have a right to live. By destroying the nature, we are depriving these life forms of their right to live. We are going against the true ethical and moral values by disturbing the balance in nature. We are being unethical in treating the plant and animal life forms which coexist in society. Human beings have certain duties towards their fellow beings. On similar lines, we have a set of duties towards our environment. Environmental ethics says that we should base our behavior on a set of ethical values that guide our approaches towards the other living being in nature. Environmental ethics is about including the rights of non-human animals in our ethical and moral values. Even if the human race is considered the primary concern of society, animals and plants are in no way less important. They have the right to get their fair share of existence. We the human beings, along with the other forms of life, make up our society. We all are a part of the food chain and thus closely associated with each other. We together form our environment. The environment is not the property of the humans alone. Humans exist because of all other non-living elements of the environment. Therefore, conservation of natural resources is not only the need of the day or time, but also our prime duty. Does the earth exist for the benefit of humanity alone? Do humans have any ethical obligations with respect to the natural worlds? Have we the right to take all the earth's resource for our own use? Do we have a responsibility to be good steward over the earth? Do other species have an intrinsic right to exist? Do trees have legal standing? Do what do various religions have to say about humanity's relationship to the rest of the living world? These are some of the questions addressed in the study of environmental ethics. Environmental ethics and sustainable development. Although there is a disagreement over the meaning of sustainable development, most countries have accepted sustainable development as their basic policy. The overlapping areas of consensus between sustainable development and the environmental ethics are obvious. The need for environmental justice among the present generation. Ethics are obvious. The need of environmental justice among the present generation, especially to eliminate absolute poverty. Absolute poverty. The need to care for future generations, and the need to live harmoniously with nature. Only once human society gets on track with regard to achieving sustainable development can we deal successfully with the challenges of global warming, diminishing biodiversity, and world hunger. Environmentalism and pacifism. The last thing human beings should do is expend huge amounts of resources on studying and making weapons of mass destruction. Environmental security does not come from hegemonic militant power, but from a just and peaceful international order. As war is a massive violation of humans' right to life and causes massive destruction of the environment. Avoidance of war should be the primary concern of environmental ethics. Democratic countries should apply their domestic political principle to relations with other countries and allow themselves to be subject to the authority of the UN. The policy that the policy that might is right, which prevailed in colonial times, must be condemned and abandoned. The UN and its member states must aim to construct and strengthen the international legal and judicial system and to arbitrate any disputes among its member states through this system to avoid military conflicts. Only a peaceful international order can foster cooperation among countries in dealing with the global environmental crisis. The close connection between environmental protection and peace must be recognized. All countries have a responsibility to spend more money on environmental programs rather than on military programs. Ecosystems, the land ethic. Aldo Leopold, a, a forester, ecologist, wildlife manager, professor, conservationist, author, and prophet of environmental ethics, claimed famously, "A thing is right when it tends to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the bionic community. It is wrong when it tends otherwise. The land is a community is the basic concept of ecology, but that land is to be loved and respected is an extension of ethics. In a holistic ethics, this ecosystemic level in which all organisms are embedded also counts morally. In some respects, more than any, some respects more than any of the component organism organisms, because the systematic process have generated continue to support and integrate tens of thousands of member organisms. The appropriate unit for moral concern is the fundamental unit of development and survival. That we were just saying is species lines, but the species is what it is, where it is encircled by an ecology. A land ethic might seem a naturalistic ethic, but people are living on this land, and so nature and culture soon mix. Trying to map the human environments, we are valuing three main territories: the urban, the rural, and the wild. All three of which are necessary if we are to be three-dimensional person. Nature is much present in the hybrid habits of rural landscapes. An ethic we need an ethic for agro ecosystems. Wildlife can extensively remain on landscapes, but landscapes put to multiple use. And so we need an ethic of wildlife management. We need an ethic for forest and farmlands for the countryside. Nature is present in and a support of our cities as well. A land ethic changes the role of Homo sapiens from conqueror of the land community to plain member and citizen of it. It implies respect for his fellow members and also respect for the community as such. Nature means everything in our environment, the soil, the climate, and all living things. Is Christianity to blame for the destruction of the natural environment? How do different religions approach our relationship with the natural world? The world has not the world was not created solely for man's use, but exists apart from humans, complete in its own right. A numerous class of men are painfully astonished whenever they find anything living or dead in all goods universe which they cannot eat or render in some way what they call useful to themselves. Environmental ethics is also concerned with the issue of responsible personal conduct with respect to natural landscapes, resources, species, and non-human organisms. Conduct with respect to person is, of course, the direct concern of moral philosophy as such. Moral responsibility. Moral implies knowledge, capacity, choice and value significance. This is to say, if a person is morally responsible to do something, then he a knows of the requirement, b is capable of performing it, c can freely choose whether or not to do it, and d the performance thereof affects the welfare and of liberty of other beings. Because one's response to these requirements reflects upon his value as a person, we say that this response has a moral significance. We know that we can cause massive and permanent damage to natural landscapes, resources, and ecosystems. Not only do we know that we can cause these insults, but mm, uh, insults, we also know how we can cause them, but how we can prevent or remedy them. Knowing all this exacts a moral obligation to act with care, foresight, and at times with forbearance and constraints in our dealings with the natural environment. We are, in short, called upon to reflect, act, or perhaps to refrain from refrain from acting in manner which testifies to our worth as persons and as a culture. In a word, to respond morally, one of the most serious problems with the environmental movement today is that its moral position is badly articulated and defended. It is more felt than thought through. Environmental ethics: descriptive, normative, and critical. Moral philosophers have found it useful to distinguish three levels of study in their discipline. The first level, descriptive ethics. Descriptive ethics consists of account of what people and or their cultures do, in fact, value. Imagine, for example, a hypothetical public opinion survey reporting that 55% of Californians favor extraordinary and costly measures to protect and preserve their northern forest, that 30% oppose such measures, and that 15% are undecided. Since the survey reports the moral opinions of the sample population without offering a moral judgments of these beliefs. The poll is an exercise in descriptive ethics. Similarly, an anthropological report that such a tribe values head hunting describes the value of that tribe. Descriptive ethics then can be regarded as a specialized type of social science. The second level, normative ethics, also called prescriptive ethics, deals with moral issues in the conventional sense of that term, that is, with questions of right or wrong, duties and right, justice and injustice, virtue and wickedness, and so forth. On this level of ethical discourse, judgments are made and defended concerning the moral value of acts, motives, and policies, or of the persons or communities responsible for these acts, motives, or policies. Also, in particular cases, recommendations are made as to the morally best course of action or conduct. Thus, a normative response to the hypothetical poll on the Northland forest might be how dreadful that our fellow citizens should care so little about their bionic legacy. Or, on the other hand, I am glad to see that our citizens are at last coming to their moral sense and recognizing that human beings are more important than a bunch of trees. Similarly, one might normatively condemn the practice of head hunting, accurately described by the anthropologist. The philosopher, accustomed as he is to ask the next question, is not content simply to hear a normative opinion. He insists upon a clear and precise statement of the meaning of the concepts employed in the opinion. When the philosopher seeks to clarify the meaning of normative term, or to examine the structure, grounds, and justification of normative arguments, he is engaging in the activity of critical ethics or meta-ethics. He is thus, in a sense, an intellectual spectator or of the normative judgment. It is the task of the critical moral philosophers to take account of the logic, language, and methodology of normative discourse and argument. Thus, if the moralist condemns capital punishment as unjust, or hearing or head hunting as barbaric, the meta-ethical philosopher will ask the meaning of justice and barbarism in these contexts. He will also inquire as to the nature and soundness of the arguments offered in defense of these normative claims. A failure to discriminate among these levels of ethical inquiry can lead to considerable confusion and error. For instance, a failure to distinguish between descriptive and normative ethics can draw one into a naive cultural relativism, or even a subjective relativism. Failure to distinguish normative ethics from a critical ethics can lead to a hasty moral conclusions. For example, if we affirm meta ethically that future generations can meaningfully be said to have rights, it does not follow that they normatively have a right to share the company of Ismail Darter, or to find the boundary waters canop area in a natural state. Furthermore, if someone normatively argues that dumping nuclear waste in the ocean is inherently unjust, we should neither accept nor reject his claim until we have meta-ethically determined what he means by inherently unjust, and have examined the structure of his argument and the premises of point of view from which it is argued. Let us let us now apply these three levels of ethical inquiry to environmental ethics. First, descriptive environmental ethics is not a significant problem in environmental ethics for the simple reason that, strictly speaking, descriptive ethics is not really a part of moral philosophy at all. Rather, because it is descriptive, it is really a type of social science. If we ask what do the American people think of their national park, do they believe the park to be valuable, worth the cost of their preservation? If we judge the environmental values of most Americans to be deplorable, a normative judgment, and thus feel moved to do something about it, we might we might attempt to change these attitudes, and so we would enter the fields of environmental education and moral education, and what teaching methods most effectively produce the attitude we approve of. Normative ethics deals directly with the nerve of morality, namely the question what should we do, or example such issues as what is the optimum use of this canyon or for forest or desert. How should we treat this in natural area? Use it up, protect it, preserve it intact. What good is a useless endangered species? How much efforts how much effort and cost should be devoted to protecting it? What damage to the environment and what risk to future generations is acceptable in return for the development of sy- synthetic fuels and nuclear powers? Critical ethics, meta-ethics, is concerned with the meaning of ethical concepts and with the justification of normative claims. Thus, environmental meta-ethics brings to policy and legislative debates such questions as these: upon what unstated moral assumptions are these contending positions based? The position of the developer and the preservationist. We are now prepared to clarify a crucial distinction. Environmental ethics is to be identified in this introduction as a meta-ethical term designating any ethical position that expresses a viewpoint concerning man's responsibility to nature. Ecological morality, on the other hand, identifies the particular normative environmental ethics of such writers as Aldo Leopold, who view man as a part of the natural community with duties of respect and forbearance towards that community. Environmental ethics. Why now? Why? Because we can't sit this one out. Not to decide about issues of environmental ethics is to decide in favor of the status quo and in favor of business as a usual. But our poor, battered, plundered, and polluted planet cannot long endure a continuation of business as usual. We have in the past couple of centuries achieved a cleverness that has far overshot our wisdom. The explosive growth of scientific knowledge, followed shortly by a parallel growth in technical in ingenuity, has created an explosive growth in moral problems such unprecedented in human history. Ethics is a very ancient human preoccupation, older perhaps than philosophy itself, and yet environmental ethics is very new. In view of the recent dramatic growth in knowledge and technology, it is not difficult to see why this is so. Ethics deal with the realm of imaginable human conduct that falls between the impossible and the inevitable. That is within the area of human capacity and choice, and now even within our own on lifetime, and ever more so with each years we have acquired capabilities and thus face choices that have never been faced before in the course of human history. Indeed, we now face many capabilities and choices never contemplated or even imagined before. These include choices of birth, life, and death, or that for our species, and other choices that are rapidly changing the living landscape for forever. When the ecosystem was not understood or even recognized or appreciated as a system, when the earth and its wilderness were believed to be too vast to be damaged by voluntary human choice. At such a time, there was no environmental ethics. But in our own time, we have uh, re revalidated the myth of Genesis. For in our own time, with knowledge has come power, and with both knowledge and power we have lost our innocence. This knowledge and this power are due, of course, to the scientific revolution, and therein resides a puzzle and a paradox. The scientists steadfastly and correctly claim that their content and methodologies are value natural, and the narrow sense. They are right. As methodology, science is properly value free and should be value free and evaluative reflection you will notice. But this properly value free methodology has opened up a bewildering array of capacities and choices to us evaluating creatures, and we are not equipped with the ethical insights and the moral restraints that are necessary to deal wisely and appropriately with these choices. Yet the choices are before us and we cannot evade them. Not to decide is to decide. The issue of environmental ethics are momentous, live and force, to borrow William James terms. This is to say, these issues involve moral choices of enormous importance that we can make, and even more that we must make. Our moral responsibility to nature and to the future is of unprecedented significance and urgency, and that is a responsibility that we cannot escape. In our thereof careless and cu- capricious hands lies the late of our natural environment, our brother species, and the generations that will succeed us. Therein lies our inalienable, dreadful challenge and our awesome responsibility. Let us sum up. Environmental ethics is theory and practice about appropriate concern for values in and duties regarding the natural world. By classical accounts, ethics is people relating to people in justice and love. Environmental ethics start with human concern for a quality environment, and some think this shapes the ethnic from start to finish. Other holds that beyond interhuman concern, values are at stake when humans relate to animals, plants, species, and ecosystems. Humans deliberately and extensively rebuild the spontaneous natural environment and make the rural and urban environments in which they reside. We care about the quality of life in these hybrids of nature and culture. Ethics arises to protect various goods within our cultures. This historically has been its principal arena. As philosophers frequently model this, ethics is a feature of the human social contract. People arrange a society where they and the others with whom they live do not or ought not lie, steal, kill. This is right, and one reason that is right is that people must cooperate to survive, and the more they reliably cooperate, the more they flourish. One way of envisioning this is the so-called original position, where one enters into contract, figuring out what is best for a person on average, ob- oblivious to the specific circumstances of one's time and place. This is where a sense of universality, or at least pan-culturalism in morality, has a plausible rational basis. The four most critical issues that humans currently face are peace, population, development, and environment. All are interrelated. Human desires for maximum development drive population increases, escalate exploitation of the environment, and fuel the forces of war. Those who exploit persons will typically exploit nature as readily. Animals, plants, species, ecosystems, and the earth itself. Feminists have found this to be especially true where both women and nature are together exploited. The interest of environmental ethics done from perspective of political ecology, sustainable development, bioregionalism, eco justice, from an ethics of stewardship or human virtue in caring or sense of place. All these tend to be humanistic and to recognize that nature and culture have entwined destinies. Thank you.